This is Trinont, and this is Path of Exile. Last we left off, we were playing Trade League. I figured I was kind of burning out on it, and I do like doing playthroughs of this game again. So what we're going to do is a slow walkthrough, maybe like pseudo Let's Play of this game. Kind of with maybe commentary and stuff, talking about the game as we slowly move through it. Unfortunately, I didn't do I'm halfway through Act 1 or close to it, maybe about a third of the way through, so we're missing this part. And that's okay. Game has enough content for talking about the rest of it. So Path of Exile, played it a lot, talk about it a lot. It's a free-to-play action RPG. Action RPG being a more generic term for what it actually is, which is a game similar to Diablo. I don't want to call it a Diablo clone, but a Diablo-like. Now, it's in that subgenre of action RPG, if you will. Now, this game tries to be dark and moody, top-down, action RPG, lots of loot, lots of picking up stuff. We have an inventory panel of gear that affects our stats and all of that. Have a hotbar that reminds me a lot of like MOBAs, actually more than Diablo. Diablo had like these, didn't really have a hotbar. It had like left click and right click, and you selected them. Later, the remake of it allowed more of a hotbar system. And we're going to play a build that's not really a build. Kind of something that's slow and doesn't really scale well. Not necessarily because that's a good idea, but more because that just makes the run slower and lets me talk more about the game. We're probably not going to talk to NPCs too much because that'll drag down the playthrough even longer than it already is.
While we live, we are blessed.
But just know that the way the game's structured is each act has a town, and then a bunch of zones outside of it.
Yes?
You have characters, they have dialogue options on the top, and then they have their function below that. Some NPCs are just dialogue characters, and they just have dialogue, but
Yes?
Nessa here is a vendor. Darkly over here, vendor as well, and gave me a reward for killing a crab.
Emperor's Road via Prisoner's Gate. Had to skirt around Axiom Prison. That's the holdfast of
Voice acting is actually pretty good in this game,
bloody treacherous trip across
but I recommend listening to it on a first playthrough, but we're not going to do that because look at all of this dialogue. That's a little too much for me after playing this game for as long as I have.
Still alive, are we?
Oh yeah, in the middle part here, this is quest text. So you have optional dialogue, quests, and function. In this case, Turkley is a weapon and armor vendor. Nessa's a magic wand, potion, jewelry, and skill gem vendor.
Be well.
Two things that differentiate PoE from a lot of RPGs, or two big things. One, you may have noticed all the Skittles on my gear, with the exception of the jewelry slots, though they can have Skittles later as well. The little circles here are skill gem slots, and skills in this game are not allocated via a skill tree. They're allocated via skill gems. So my axe attack, splitting steel, is here. I just socket it in and out. You don't even lose the gem if you socket it. You just right click and left click. A lot of clicking in this game. And in addition to skill gems, you also have supports for them. In this case, splitting steel is linked to chance to bleed. It is also linked to ruthless support, which unfortunately does not affect splitting steel because this only affects melee weapons, and this is a projectile weapon, or a projectile attack, excuse me. Skill gems have little tags below them, so a lot of text in this game. Every item has like a little too much text, perhaps. Ruthless over here has the name on top. Below it you have tags. It says slam, support, melee attack, strike. Those are things that those are tags related to the text that affect, like what it affects and stuff. The level, since gems are items, they level independently of the character. For instance, my character is level 8, but this is a level 4 gem. Gems level up to 20, characters level up to 100. We'll get there. Well, we won't get to level 100, but we'll talk about leveling in a little bit. The bright turquoise-ish green text is what this is a description of the skill. Oh yeah, we have the level, the cost. Skills have cost, usually mana. Attack speed, so weapon attacks or attack-based skills tend to be based on the speed of a weapon as opposed to like a generic value. I find it interesting. The game doesn't measure attacks as like the speed of the weapon. Like you don't want a lower number, you just want a higher number. It says attacks per second as opposed to attack speed time or whatever. So like, though attack time is on the hotbars. So like I have 0.77 attack time, but this says 1.45 attacks per second. Attack damage, also based off the weapon. In fact, supports one of the big things about attack skills, and there are different things other than attacks in this game, is that they're highly based on the damage of your weapons. So you want to keep an eye out for good weapons for your attacks. Effectiveness of added damage, things that say add damage, like Chance to Bleed says 2 to 4 added physical damage. That 2 to 4 is multiplied by the effectiveness percentage. And I think that number goes up as the gem levels up. I forget. The turquoise text is a description of what it does. Oh yeah, above that's the level it required, the character level, and the amount of dexterity you need. There's 3 stats in this game: strength, intelligence, dexterity. A lot of information to talk about here, but I'll talk about, like, once I get done with gems, we'll start playing the game a little bit. So, turquoise text tells you what this actually does. Splitting steel is like a... I can't do it in town. If you try to do stuff in town, the character doesn't like it because this is a safe area, and you have players... This is the one area where you have players from random areas that aren't in your group appear. Players appear in town, as well as the NPCs, as well as your stash. We'll go to my hideout that unlocks in Act 2 normally for the first time you play. This is a turtle. It's a paid hideout. But you get hideouts for free, so don't worry about that part. Anyway, splitting steel, that's what it looks like. It describes what it does. It shoots a projectile that splits. Split is a very specific word. PoE does not mince words. Well, it does, but it doesn't speak in generalizations. The words are very literal in PoE. A single projectile that splits as opposed to forks. Fork is different from splits in this game. On impact or at a targeted location. In this case, a targeted location. Dealing area damage. Areas, the term is a keyword in this game, not just... so if things say area, it will affect splitting steel probably. Because it says, in fact, the tag at the top says AoE, which stands for area of effect. And then it splits again. Requires a sword or axe. We are using an axe, we can use this. We also have double strike. Double strike, an earlier weapon in the game. So notice how much text this has as opposed to this. It's like, sure, it has all of that intro text of like the tags, the level, effectiveness, damage. It just says 2 fast strikes. Chance to cause bleed and extra damage against bleeding enemies. If we can get... Let's just put that there so I remind myself that I can't use it. Actually, now that I think about it. Yeah. So supports, the way they work is they have to be in the same little link of sockets. They don't do anything. So if Ruthless is over here, it's not going to affect splitting steel. And so on and so forth. you can put gems in an offhand weapon set to level them while they're waiting to be used. We're going to go back to the town, but not. We'll ignore the turtle for now. So, other things I want to talk about really quick before we go play the game. Let's see. What's a good... So yeah, the skill gems are the big one, and the other thing is that you get slapped with, literally as the first area, is the skill tree. You may have heard of a game called Final Fantasy X and how that had a sphere grid. While not inspired by that, apparently, this has a similar idea where you have a giant web of skills. I think the game is zoomed in around here at the start, and then you realize you can scroll wheel out and have a giant mass of things. I'm not going to go over the skill tree in detail, but characters, there's multiple characters in this game that each start at a certain spot. Duelist starts here, another character would start here, another character starts here, for instance. The very starting spoke is your attributes: strength, intelligence, dexterity. They tell you what they do: 2 strength, 1 life, 5 strength, 1 melee physical damage. That's all you need to know. The other thing is a lot of things require these attributes, like this scale vest requires 22, well, this axe requires 21 strength, for instance. We have 43, so we're good. Each level gives you a node on the tree, up to 100 for 100 levels, plus a few extra from quest rewards, like that skill book we got from Tarkley at the start. You have small passives, which are these little things. They don't have a name. They're just like physical attack damage and life. They increase, this one increases the damage of physical, and gives me 14 life. You have notables, which are the medium-size circles or dots. Master of the arena, it does 4 things instead of just 2. They just basically, they serve as 2 functions. One, they're kind of big nodes that you kind of want to aim towards. The big thing is that makes it so like you have less of an aimless idea here, and more like you have an idea of where you're trying to go. A lot of parts of the skill tree have what you might call clusters or wheels that give you an idea, that have a generic theme. This, for instance, is a war cry node, and so it leads to, and all of them end up leading to a notable, at least one. With the starting area near a class tending to not have any notable, not be too specific. Let's see. So we have notables. They're basically, you have small effects, slightly bigger effects that you want to head towards through the small effects. You have keystones, which have a big upside and a big downside. Warlord's Call. Well, no, we'll not talk about that one. Blood Magic, for instance, removes all mana. You get a lot more life. Skill costs life instead of mana. Skill reserve life instead of mana. So this blue bubble goes away, and all you get is, you spend your mana, your life instead of mana. So that's pretty cool. You can see how that has an upside and a downside. And currently, you also have like these side nodes. A lot of small passes are just attribute nodes. This strength, intelligence. If you've played older ARPGs like Diablo, this is actually less like a skill tree, at least not for active skills. It's more of like that, you may have seen like in character sheets where you level up the random stats like strength, dexterity, and all of that. This is like, what if that little character sheet plus leveling up numbers was just a giant web. Alright. What else? 2 more things. You have empty things that look like notables, but they're more octagonal. Those are jewel sockets, where you can put items called jewels, believe it or not, into these empty sockets once you level into them. So you have itemized passives. You also have masteries. Masteries are kind of based around most wheels, or clusters they call it. So all these clusters have a giant circle in the middle that not only denotes the theme of the cluster, so like this is a bleed cluster, you can also select from a checklist of various benefits for the mastery. So for instance, were we to go to attack mastery, having monsters not be able to block attacks might be a thing. Once we fill out these wheels over here, get seasoned sword play, mastery is going to be check marked, and once you get the notable in that cluster, it says so in the little gray text below the mastery description. I don't really have a skill tree planned, which is a bad idea for most playthroughs. Generally, you want to have an idea of what you're doing in the game. I have some idea, but I don't have a general skill tree laid out. I'd recommend, if you're new to this game, to follow a guide. It doesn't have to be like the most powerful build. In fact, I wouldn't recommend that, because a lot of powerful builds in this game are overly complicated. I mean, I don't know, maybe, but I recommend the guide over the build, if that makes sense. Where I'd rather have a very detailed guide that may not be the strongest, but tells you a lot about the game if you're starting out. But that changes over time, which sites out there are better. Some sites are actually bad. It's actually hard to find a proper guide sometimes in this game. There's YouTube channels dedicated to build guides, but are actually kind of like paywall their builds, like actually make you have to pay to see their build planner, and then advertise like terms of things that breach terms of service in the game, like gold sellers and stuff, or the equivalent. Alright. So I explained everything I wanted to about the skill tree for now. I think we can play the game now. Oh yeah, I have a skill point. We're going to get bravery. So, zones are instants in this game. We'll be going to the ledge here. Oh yeah, in Necropolis, they have a new mechanic. We'll do that after we get to, say, the climb. You gotta click on the waypoint, by the way. Make sure you do that. So, generally you click to move, and you click a different button to attack monsters. Maybe even doing the modern day advanced strat of pressing buttons to activate skills. Skills in this game come in two flavors, generally. There's two main types of skills in this game. There's spells and attacks. Attacks generally are based off the weapon you're using, and usually require a weapon of some sort. Sometimes they just require air fists. Whereas spells range from, offensive spells like Fireball is a spell, for instance. They don't actually their damage values are not based off your weapon, which is different from a lot of modern RPGs. Oh, let me check if I'm going the right way, actually. Hang on. Dash is a spell. It's more of a utility spell, though. It's not actually an offensive spell. Aha, I was going the wrong way. Zones in this game are randomly laid out, by the way. But they have tells as to where to go. If you ever waypoint in to the ledge, there will be 3 cairns, these little stone sacks, that are actually kind of an arrow pointing to where the next area is going to be. So yeah, the game has attacks and spells. We're using an attack, splitting steel. One notable thing about attacks is they have a hit chance, unless you have ways to bypass it. So you have to worry about an accuracy rating versus an enemy's evasion rating. So you can't actually miss, even if you've perfectly aimed an attack. So it's very important to get that accuracy rating leveled up. And I can actually click my character sheet with currently bound to C on my keyboard. And it says chance to hit is 86% against monsters with no evasion rating. There's a formula for it. It's something like the character level versus the monster level versus the... and then your accuracy adds to that hit chance. You generally can want to get your hit chance all the way to 100, though in older versions of Path of Exile, I want to say all the way up to, for a pretty long time, pretty few years early on, hit chance, you could only go up to 95. I forget when they patched that out. Hey Monsterella, we're doing a slow playthrough and talking about the game as well. This is going to be like a pseudo Let's Play, if you will. Live on stream, but nevertheless a fun little detour. Pseudos, indeed. So I'm gonna just talk about the game while we play. Path of Exile story, I guess for reference. You wash up on a beach, your character committed a crime, depending which is character specific. The duelist got insulted by a noble, dueled them, killed them, exiled for it. The nation that exiled them doesn't do the death penalty, they just exile them to a place that is full of murderous monsters called Rayclast. We're in Rayclast. You wash up on a beach. The first person you talk to gets eaten by a zombie. Generally, you kill the zombie. Yeah, Marilla, we're doing a slow playthrough of Huey. Talking about the game. Explaining it. If anybody has any additions to any insights I'm making, let me know. I'll happily talk about stuff. That's what we're doing right now. We're not playing fast. Other things of note. So that's the story so far. You will go to the ramshackle town that you washed up next to, and the locals and the survivors of Rayclast on the beach are trying to find a way inland. And you're just trying to survive in Act 1, at least. The story kind of unfolds later on. You get actual little tidbits of lore through, I wanted to call them audio logs, but little lore snippets that are narrated. Usually voice acted. In this case, you hear about a tribe of warriors, a warrior tribe led by a character named Calm, killing the Lion Eyes Legion. This, from what I gather, this happened like a century or a few ago. So they're ancient carvings, if I recall. Around this point, the game mentions that there was some kind of horrible storm that drove people crazy and made people undead, so the zombies of the land are not taken for granted. They're kind of supernatural, or they're kind of like not normal. It's not like Diablo, where Diablo, I think the demons were kind of taken for granted. They're like, oh yeah, there's just these weird demon things. There's skeletons for no reason. It's kind of just didn't really get expanded on originally. It was very straightforward, demons from hell. Got more detailed later on, though. So yeah, these three characters are telling us what to do. Vessel's kind of little lost it, having survived and all. Tarkly and Nessa are keeping things in order. Alright, so we're going to town to try to get identify scrolls.
Hello.
I should mention, this game has no gold, at least no like gold number that you use to buy and sell from town, though PoE 2 apparently might. Instead, PoE is based off a bartering system. When you sell items, you get little scraps and orbs and shards, depending on what you sell. A standard item gives you a fifth of an identify scroll, or scroll of wisdom as they call it. Magic, the blue color-coded items, and rare, the yellow ones, give you other types of items. Other shards. Unidentified blue items. Unidentified items give you transmutation shards. And we'll get into all of what they do in a second. All these shards and orbs are crafting items, essentially. A chromatic orb, for instance, changes the Skittles on your gear, the delicious Skittles. For instance, this has three gem sockets, 3 Skittles. 2 of them are green, 1 is blue. If I use a chromatic orb, it would shuffle the colors around between the 3 colors, kind of tied to the 3 attributes: the red, strength; the blue, intelligence; the green, dexterity. There's actually weightings on these too. If you're much more likely to get green and blue on evasion energy shield bases, bases that require dexterity and intelligence and so on. We're gonna put this on. Boy, it's an upgrade. Trust me.
Goodbye.
One thing about Path of Exile, it's not really good at last. I was hoping for a better item here. Even though the items are color coded, you know, you have the white text normal items, the blue text magic, and the better yellow text rare, and later on a bronzed golden text of unique. What matters is not necessarily how rare the item is or what their top values are. Like, this has evasion and energy shield. What matters is the little blue text, the affixes, if you will. They're called explicit affixes, if I recall, that tell you they have various stats. And for instance, this has life and regenerate life, and life is good, so we want that. Not too commonly do, and while the implicit stats, in this case the energy shield and the evasion energy shield here, which are called defenses, while they are important, they're less important than, say, having cold resistance and life and damage, essentially. And while you will want to be finding better and better items, of, like, you know, instead of a scale vest, you might want to find a dragon scale vest. That'll always be better, but at the same time, you'll want the dragon scale vest to have relevant, explicit text. Loot is randomized in this game, so a lot of, and while there are weightings to the randomness, there's certainly a lot of, how to put it, chance and gambling into what you get. It's kind of core to the genre, really. Ooh, attack speed. We'll sell this ring for this.
Be well.
Should be noted I'm playing in a game mode called Solo Self-Found, where none of my items from my prior playthroughs hand-me-down or carried over. So this is a fresh playthrough. I have to make it by my own wits and merit. Now let's sell these while we're at it.
God hasn't abandoned us.
And I guess of other note, while we're looking at the stash tab, you have four little tabs at the start of the game that look something like this. In order to get more, you have to actually pay out real money at the cash shop. Hey Figment, yeah, it's like a slow talk around about the game, not just a tutorial, but like a kind of a commentary run of the game, just very slow. If anybody has anything they want to talk about or add to the game, I'll hopefully consider it. Talking about the cash shop right now. The game sells basically 2 types of things. It sells cosmetics, costumes for your character, and alternate hideouts that are just cosmetic and just give visual flair. You also have stash tabs. This is the functional thing they sell. Stash tabs, if anybody criticizing the game for any pay to win, it would be the stash in the game. One debates how pay to win it is, but point being, it is the functionally upgrade to the game. Whether you consider that a win or not is a debate that I'm going to avoid for now. But each stash tab gives you either an extra one of these, or you can get specialty stash tabs that let you hold tons of items. The currency stash tab here holds 5,000 of each type of crafting item. So it could hold 5,000 chromatic orbs. It also has 14? Why 14 wildcard slots too? Yeah, as pointed out in chat, PoE is an unlimited free trial with $30 to $50 for full access. And that's a fair take. I'd say that's roughly true. In terms of basically stash tabs, I'd say the amount you really would pay for would equate to roughly $30 or $50 total by the end of it that you can buy in piecemeal. But you don't have to really run with these stash tabs. It's just super convenient and kind of necessary later on. You want to play the game seriously, as they say. I've spent way too much money on stash tabs. And I do mean too much because I don't even use all my stash tabs. There's so many unused ones. So there is a very functional diminishing return to actually how useful these are. Like, if you can hold 5,000 of each type of crafting item, and you buy a second one of these currency stash tabs for some awful reason, would you ever need like two unless like you really collected items in this game? I don't think so. I have never gotten over 5,000 to the point where like I ran out of filled entire currency tab, though the identify scrolls did build up a little bit. Point being, there's definitely a diminishing return to how much. There's a soft limit to how useful these tabs get. This league is kind of controversial on how many tabs you need to store certain items. Speaking of which, PoE is sectioned in is kind of a seasonal game. Every season they give you a new mini expansion, a league they call it. And the league has a different mini game. This mini game of this league is Necropolis. Airmore here,
Welcome to my little slice of Ray Club.
who we're not going to talk to too much. We'll pick up corpses from the ground, special corpses that let us craft items, and we're gonna take advantage of them right now. Put the corpses in the ground. We'll craft a sword. How about a copper sword?
And become a weapon to cut the wicked.
And you just get to make items, and items have different stats in them. This is actually really good. The league mechanic usually is very difficult and usually very overpowered, and that's true in this league, I would say. I think I upgraded my damage. Let's find out. My tooltip says 35, and now says 45. Perfect.
When we bury our anguished friend.
And the game gives you usually a little quest to tell you, which serves as a tutorial on how to use the mechanic. We're gonna try to get how about a helmet? Armor? Helmet? How about armor and evasion? A battered helm.
So that you may allow them to be headstrong.
Headstrong. Because it's a helm. Okay, no. I don't think that's what he meant. And let's gamble for boots. These corpses, you bury them and then Aramor there sucks the souls out and crafts items out of it somehow. We do not question. Let's do boots. And we'll do armor.
So that you may grace them with fleetness.
Oh, this has movement speed. That's what I was trying to get. So, talking about how stats matter more than like the actual values of like the base armor. You want movement speed on boots almost always, so this has 10% movement speed as opposed to our pitiful no movement speed, and you can see our character speeds up just a little bit. Movement speed goes up to 35%, usually settle for 30, and it feels so much better to move fast in this game, in my opinion. Now we have a puzzle. You may notice that my gems, my little skittles here, do not match my little skittles on the gear here. So if I try to put this helmet on, I lose my splitting steel. So I may try to do some shenanigans. I think our shenanigan today will be to use a crafting item, a chromatic orb. Because I want to use this helmet. And what we might do... I think this supple scale vest is the best gamble we can do. See how it has armor and evasion? It is likely to roll green and red. And lo and behold, I got lucky. I can put splitting steel, chance to bleed, dash, and double strike for good measure, which will pair with ruthless while we're at it. I think I can put ancestral protector on. Yay! Now I have a nice hotbar of abilities. Oh wait, no, this is the thing I needed to swap out too. Alright, double strike, you can relax there for now. I don't want to use another chromatic orb just yet, though there is argument. Wrong color. Let's try this one. Chromatic orbs are not worth using like this, by the way, in general. Save your orbs. Generally better to save them until you have like I'd say about like 20 or so before you start using them on gear. They build up over time pretty fast. Generally, the farther you are in the game, the more crafting items drop, more and more, until generally you're overflowing in them. With the rare items being much harder to find, even at high levels of play. There's also a conversion thing going on, where any crafting shard sells for fragments of scrolls. Sometimes I sell shards to get the wisdom scrolls, because identify scrolls really help early on. Alright, now that we've prepped for that, I should note we very much over-prepared here. We did not need to do all of this. Speedruns of this game are somewhere around 4 hours for a fresh start. I'd say even 3. I forget if anybody's broken the sub 2 hour in the recent versions of the game.
My fans in Oriath will barely recognize me.
Monsters are color-coded like items. You have the normal monsters, magic monsters like these, rare monsters, and even unique monsters. Here's the lore text I was looking at. There is no honor without sacrifice, lionized standard. And there's a weathered carving from time ago, and it's narrated. We're not going to listen to it, but generally it's saying that the evil storm made people into zombies and animals into vicious animals, and bone wheel skeletons into rolling bone wheel skeletons, I guess. Art of the Gladiator. That gives us dexterity, and also makes us not move without, or have move penalty from wearing armor, from wearing body armor or shields. Should be noted is, as far as build strategy go, generally it's a bad idea to take these flat attribute nodes, because a lot of the notables give attributes that these would. Like this node alone is worth 2 of these points because it gives 20 strength. And these little passives here give stuff that strength normally doesn't. Now there's situations where you will take the attribute tiny nodes, but the small passive points, sorry. But that's not always the case. Anyways, here's a Twist Timeless Monolith. Let's I'm not going to explain it, and we'll just have to figure it out. The only thing I'll say about this monolith is that it was added into the game in the story mode that we're playing. approximate in this season. Up until then, there was no Legion monolith in the climb for quite some time. Now some music's playing. There's some soldiers. Some Karui sentry. I don't know how you pronounce that properly. Path of Exile is developed in New Zealand, and the Karui are definitely inspired by the Maori tribe that's native to New Zealand. Definite similarities there. Dramatic music's playing. One thing I sadly was not able to showcase here is that if you... Oh, here's Imperial Watchman. If I had shattered the Karui and the Imperials next to each other, they would be infighting. And that'd be cool. Alas, I was not able to showcase that right now. You may notice that my inventory is filling up very quickly. The game has a relatively tiny inventory for how many items you pick up. Path of Exile is a game about not picking up everything. It's about selecting what you pick up, I would say. So, at the start of the game, you want to pick up a lot of stuff just to get a little bit of crafting items and those precious Identify scrolls going. Later on, it matters a lot less. We don't need these. Eventually, you don't even pick up the magic items, then eventually you don't even pick up the rare items. And eventually, you don't even pick up unique items. You only pick up very particular good items. We don't need that, we do need that. Right now I'm at the pick up yellow items that matter territory. Oh, why did I have that going? You may notice I'm also picking up this fine circlet here. If I drop it on the ground, my loot filter shows that it's has this gray background. Any set of gems that are linked, and there's at least a rainbow flush of them, the blue, green, red, and sell for a vendor for spicy chromatic orb, where normally they would not. Vendors have recipes, if you will, of things they'll buy from you. For instance, if you sell an item with 6 sockets on it, they'll return jeweler orbs instead of whatever they normally would. The recipes are... you don't need to know them too much, but they do get... There are some fun ones that you can get, some spicy selling combos. One thing about this game is I'm not sure what the lore of the goatmen are. I think they're just goats. Somebody joked it's like, yeah, there's a goat guy, kill him. He's the goat man. Kill the goat. You don't really interact with them too much story-wise. They're just hanging, you know, being goats. Here's a unique monster. He's the fawn. Fawn likes to slam fire at you. A lot of monsters in PoE can be bypassed by just circling around them. Sometimes standing far away, sometimes standing close. Generally standing at a medium distance and circling around them just so you don't get hit. You can see how my mouse is, which does take a little bit of practice. Because if you're new, you're not going to mouse spam as much, maybe, but over the course of my play, my muscle memory has gotten to the point where I'm just like, yeah, I got this. Came across a large life flask here. Flasks are a little interesting in PoE. They have a source of controversy at this point, but flasks have a neat thing where they don't actually get deleted when you use them. They're not consumed on use. Also, we have a jump scare of wheel skeletons here. Instead, they refill. You just drink them, and the glass bottle they're in stays around. And they refill as you kill monsters. Isn't that neat? So we have a Lantern of Aramor here. That Gravekeeper gave us one to see monsters buffing things. We're gonna... you can click it, and the monsters in the next area are going to be powered up or in some way. So that's cool. And this is where we can actually use those all flames that we found. I'm going to turn a giant group of skeletons and necromancers into frogs. All flame members, sorry, not the all flame. The all flame is something else.
Fight, then. I can live with that.
Okay. Most quests you get are completed by killing a boss or something. This quest you just by entering that lower prison. Nessa's like, hey, there's an evil warden who's not at all inspired by the butcher from Diablo. Here, have a skill gem or a support gem to help you out to fight this not inspired at all by other things person. I think we'll take... what's a good one here? I think Maim is actually good for this character. Lesser multiple projectiles would not be bad either. I'm pretty sure... yeah, so LMP... Lesser multiple projectiles often gets abbreviated to LMP. Or Maim. We don't even have the room for these yet, but we'll get there. Let's get LMP.
Be well.
Because we might get a better helmet here. Cold Rose. In life, yeah, we'll take that. Splitting Steel. With lesser multiple projectiles. So the reason flasks are a controversy is because of these green flasks here, the utility flasks. Generally, flasks weren't designed to be constantly used. They're meant to be refilled over time as you fought monsters. As the game grew and as power crept on the items and gear, it became easier and easier to sustain these flasks and refill them constantly, to the point where it became that you were just mashing your fingers constantly on this flask hotbar, spending all of these green utility flasks. And it's not necessarily because the game was designed initially for that, it's just that there's so many monsters later down the line, and your flask refills so easily that people would call it piano flasking, where you just constantly press these in rhythm, because they last roughly, well, this one lasts 6 seconds or so. So every 6 seconds you just press this button, and it wouldn't matter if monsters were on the screen or not, because they would die too fast. But and that's changing a little bit in PoE too. They still refill, but in different ways. Whalebone Rapier here. I don't think this is better. 5 to 20? Nah, yeah. This has more accuracy. Let's find out. 3 to 9, 3. Oh, it is more damage. Perfect. Let's see. We'll keep Chance to Bleed over there.
What little help
Now we're going to do a Vendoring Purge. And
we are blessed.
fun tidbit, if you run out of identify scrolls, the easiest way to get them back is just to sell other shards. Well, first identify any rare items you have. At least I prefer to do this. Then sell the identified version, get shards back, because you generally get more shards if they're identified. Then sell the shards or orbs for more wisdom scrolls, and repeat. And eventually you get a nice bevy of items. You get a nice influx of scrolls and stuff. But you don't want to oversell items either, because you want to keep these orbs of alteration and transmutation for other nefarious purposes, generally from buying from vendors. They sell that good stuff for fancier and fancier orbs. Let's see. Last, not better. Alright. I'm gonna put that on, though. And we'll... For instance, I want to get faster attacks from Nessa, and lo and behold, it costs an Orb of Transmutation as opposed to a Scroll of Wisdom now. So they're getting spicier to get. I'm gonna sort them like that. Sell off some more items. Oh yeah, there is a quest right here. Tarkly is telling us to kill Brutus. Doesn't actually give us a reward for that, but that's okay. You spend enough time in the prison, or outside the prison. Let's go in here. Should be noted that instances in this game, or zones, are instanced. So when you go into one, it creates a little copy. There's no other players or anything unless you group with them. And the instances reset if you're outside of a zone for 8 to 15 minutes. It varies based on server load and how long you're a player and stuff, I guess. This is Chatters. Chatters is a skeleton who does cold damage. That's his gimmick. That's about it. I think he also buffs other enemies with cold damage. There's ghouls. Ghouls are actually not originally in the prison. They're a newer enemy. Introduced in patch 3.15. They were trying to remake the first act to be slightly better than it was originally, and decided one way to do that was to add fast-moving, ghoulish enemies. I think Necromancers here, the Diabolists as they're called, or Diabolists, they resurrect enemies faster than they originally did. They used to be much slower at resurrecting, because the game was originally a little bit slower. Players were a little bit weaker, but power creeps swept in, and even at the lowest levels, they wanted to make the game harder. Even though this Necromancer just refuses to die. I think that's because fun fact about these things here. Lesser Bolt projectiles does make me shoot two additional projectiles of splitting steel. But you may notice it also makes them do less damage. And a lot of support gems have this trade-off where they do less damage but have more spread, or maybe do more damage but have some other bad penalty to them or something. Let's see. Since we're going one-handed, I don't know if I'm going to stick with splitting steel. I don't think I'm going to go for... Well, you know what? We'll hang around with splitting steel. Let's get Fury Bolts. Actually, I have a better idea. I have a sneaky plan that I'm not going to tell anybody. We're just going to go get some dexterity. Generally, though, I think if you're starting out and you want to not follow a build guide for some reason, generally a good idea is to find clusters that look relevant to your build on the skill tree and beeline towards those. Don't take too many side nodes because you'll run out of points too fast. As you can see, I've that All Flame member has turned a lot of these sponsors into frogs. That's the entrance to the upper prison up there. We're not going to go there yet because there is one little optional area I need to find. Also frogs. Frogs, frogs. A short bow. I'm actually never going to use this short bow, but I am going to keep it for vendoring purposes. So this area is randomly laid out, and speedrunners actually memorize the tile sets to some extent, and try to take cues off what certain tiles look like to get a feel for where to go, and generally have a loose sense of how an area is laid out. The way the randomized areas are work in this game is they kind of pick from a set of templates of like how tiles are arranged, which is what allows speedrunners to play this game much faster than I would, especially for the slow run. And they will they'll use that to their advantage to go through areas fast. Now, this is a thing called a Trial of Ascendancy, the Lord's Labyrinth. Quest has appeared. And this is kind of a little bit of a platforming challenge, if you will, which I kind of loathe. I don't like point-and-click platforming, and this is that, essentially. We are dodging spike traps. And I think I prefer that with better control schemes meant for more precision, and I've gotten used to it over the years, but yeah, my character may love the Stink of Victory, but I don't like the tedium of moving through these areas. One thing you may have noticed that I did there was I leapt over this gap, and I can't go through it right now, but there is a lot of movement skills, in this case dash, can go through or over ledges, which I think is really cool, and it seems to be a feature that not a lot of games embrace, but I think it's really neat. And Diablo 2 did that a lot, had a skill called Teleport and Leap. Well, two skills, one was Teleport, one was Leap, that let you just zoom around the maps, and it was really fun. We don't need this copper sword. We'll pick this up and pick this up. Oh yeah, make sure to click this. If we click the plaque again, shows one lighted up skull with 5 other areas to do, implying that we need to solve 5 more areas worth of tedious trap gauntlets. We'll get to those later. Fun fact, the map doesn't look like this originally. It's more zoomed in. If you press the numpad, it's like zoomed in right around here. If you press numpad plus, it'll zoom in. If you press numpad minus, it'll zoom out. If you press your arrow keys on the keyboard, it'll pan. Hitting tab will center the minimap or put it in the corner. There's actually a transparency option for this too. You may notice that it's showing like kind of the walls, but also like little filler stuff. So the landscape, which is not actually the collision, it can be highlighted to be more opaque. We're keeping it low, and the map itself can be highlighted. The map being what your character actually walks into and stuff. We're going to keep it right around here. Upper prison. We'll click the lantern. This is, again, the Necropolis mechanic. And put these all down here. I do not want... The Necropolis panel is sorted from the most common packs of monsters to the least common, and we will definitely want to put these difficulty modifiers in the least common. Eventually I might not even bother with sorting these if my character feels strong enough, but we'll just make it easier ourselves. So we're in the upper prison. It's the same as the lower prison except upper. It's higher up. The tile sets are ever so slightly different, but the monsters are roughly the same. I think one difference outside of the mini-boss, the unique boss here, is that there's lightning skeletons. I think there's only bleed skeletons in the lower floors. There's skeletons that shoot lightning at this particular area. Lightning mage skeletons, excuse me. So yes, the monsters that were modified in this little panel here have chances to drop corpses. Those are the monsters that will drop specialty corpses, and sometimes you want to pick which. I'm not too well versed in this mechanic because it's pretty fresh and I haven't looked and done the research for it, but sometimes you want to actually put despite their difficulty increase, want to put these little stats onto the certain packs of monsters to make them drop certain corpses. Sometimes those corpses can be pretty valuable. So one thing they did in this league is they reshuffled the campaign a little bit. They added spicy little events. That Legion monolith we did a few areas ago that had the frozen in time enemies that popped out and dropped lots of loot. That was added into the game as just a little bonus mechanic. It actually appears later on, way later on, for a much more robust feature. But I mention it because there's also another little bonus event like that in the prison. The prison has, I want to say it's the lower prison, unfortunately, has a secret switch that will lead to a little monster closet that will drop a bunch of flasks, which are fairly hard to get early on, so I may have missed it though, so we're not going to fret too hard about that. That's okay. There's a unique Diabolist in this area called Sawbones. Sawbones has not deigned to make himself a presence yet. We might come across him, we might not. His only difference from the other Diabolists is he casts a different curse on you. Instead of enfeebling you, he makes you vulnerable. Casts you with a vulnerability debuff. It's very frustrating. But we missed him. But that's not the main boss of the area. That would be Brutus, who's coming up soon. Bunch of dead soldiers here.
Recognize that pretty face. Grand Arena, Theopolis. I've a future in mind that I think would suit you, duelist.
That's Piety, as the dialogue says. She taunts you and runs away through most of the story where she's present. A lot of tile sets in this game, despite being shuffled, have little tricks to tell you where to go. In this case, there's a trail of blood telling you where the actual direction you need to go is. So even if the path forks, just follow the trail of blood. I'm sure it'll lead to a fun and safe area. Once you see the book on the minimap, you're likely to be next to Brutus. Brutus originally had his own arena. It was through that grate, actually. In that same patch where they reworked the monsters and added the ghouls, they also did a surprise Brutus moment, where Brutus appeared in the entryway before his arena. And they've kept that ever since, so now Brutus is in a more confined space.
I can't do this just yet.
He used to summon skeletons from the roof too. That would be actually kind of beneficial because you could kill them for flash charges. He also put spikes on the ground that appeared, but they're not here either. In some ways this fight's actually harder than it was originally because of that. Lack of skeletons and stuff to heal with. Brutus likes to scorpion lance you and pull you over, let me embrace you. He'll slam the ground in two different ways. One will be like a repeated set of slams. The other is this other is a shockwave. The shockwave hurts a lot, as does the other attack, but you can just run away from that. You can tell which is which because the multi-slam has a little flash on his fist when he does it. A blood flash. And then the other move he does is kind of a wind up. And slowly but surely. In general he does the Scorpion Call is the hardest move to avoid. You just take the hit usually. And now he's dead.
Skill beats size every time.
Usually he drops more higher rarity loot, but again, random game, random loot. Yeah, so this is where the original arena for Brutus was. Now it's all in shatters, it's all disheveled and shattered and broken around. Anyways, let's see. Oh, more movement speed boots. Doesn't matter. Let's go. This is one of the few areas where the waypoint's activated for you once you kill Brutus. You also can't go back. This also happens in some other zones in the game. Usually halfway points or full points between act transitions. They just pop the waypoint out for you for whatever reason. And we do get a reward for killing Brutus. I believe it's a skill gem. And they're like, wow, you killed Brutus. You're a badass. Good job. Have fun. We're going to get Leap Slam. And probably Precision as well from Nessa. Used to be that you couldn't buy skill gems from a vendor in town. You just had to rely on the quest rewards for them. There's even a game mode where that's still applicable, but it's kind of a little too annoying to play with, so I don't do it. We want to get Precision because this is a buff that'll give us more Precision is a buff that gives us more accuracy, the stat we desperately need. Alright, let's see. I'm just going to identify the rare items here and sell the rest. I'm keeping anything that has cold resistance on it for reasons that will reveal themselves a little bit later. We don't need that much mana. You may notice when I'm control clicking to put items in my stash that they don't immediately go into this stash. There's a system called Affinities where if I put in a currency item, it'll go in the currency tab, like that alteration orb went down here. The flasks go in the flask tab, and so on and so forth. That's all. That's all we're doing. You can control click. You can also drag if you want, but it's not as fun. It's not as efficient. Most people just jam down that control key and control click. That's what we're doing. One of the vendor recipes the vendor recipe system I mentioned, one of them is selling 3 of a flask type will give you the next tier up, which is why early on you're given a quest reward to accept a large or medium-sized life flask or mana flask. You actually want to pick the third option, the Quicksilver flask, because you can't vendor recipes these. And life and quicksilver are more common, or life and mana are more common than the green utility flasks. They don't drop as easily. Kind of want to get an iron ring just to get more damage. 1 to 4 damage might not sound like a lot. It actually is early on. It damage actually scales with all these little percentile numbers here, so that 1 to 4 damage is suddenly 2 to 8 with these multipliers here. Now comes the painful decision. Yeah, let's sell this.
While we live, we are blessed.
The painful decision of what to swap out. Also, Leap Slam is going to go here. Dash is going to go here. Warbanner is going to go over there. Actually, Warbanner will go on the Q key. Oh yeah, a lot of people don't know this at the start, but in order to swap skills, you just left click on the hotbar itself and you pick from the set. Worth knowing, I suppose. Might not actually be able to fit precision, so we're just going to put swap out lesser multiple projectiles, and that'll be good because it was making sweating steel do less damage anyways. Do we have any red gems? We have ruthless, but yeah. All right. Buffs in this game are usually pretty cool, where they don't usually... Any buffs that tend to not have a cooldown or just permanent buffs tend to actually be permanent toggles. Instead of like saying you cast a skill that lasts for 2 minutes and then you gotta remember to cast it again. What if it was just permanently on? And that's what auras do. Auras tend to reserve a portion of your mana. Precision here reserves 22 of it, meaning 22 of my mana will just cut out of my mana pool. Warbanner's been doing that as well. It's been reserving 10% of my mana. Precision is one of the rare auras that reserve a flat amount, 22 instead of a percentile. And the more you level precision, the more this reservation amount goes up. It's actually kind of tricky. Also, if you link a support gem to an aura and it's valid, it'll actually increase the amount reserved, so you gotta be careful with that. There's even a very rare gem that is a support gem that all it does is reduce the amount reserved. We're not going to get that, but we might get it, but it's very low chance. I think it only appears later in the game. With Brutus down, I'm going to quickly grab some water. I've been talking a lot. So we'll be right back, and then when we get back, we'll go to the Prisoner's Gate. We are back. So Brutus is dead. I wonder if I could have a better weapon now. Probably not. One of the challenges in PoE is not only finding gear with the right skittles, right gem colors, but also finding better and better gear as you go along. Ironically, spellcasters tend to not have too much trouble, or have a little bit easier time with this, because their spells tend to scale with gem level and not weapon damage. So in some ways spells are actually pretty easy, but you still need to worry about things like life, defenses of various sorts, being the defense, the armor, and energy shield, or especially resistances. Oh, resistances, we'll get to those soon. Alright, with Brutus dead, we'll go back to Prisoner's Gate. Notice the layout changed, because I was out of town for too long. Also, we'll put on Precision. Now, I gotta remember not to level Precision, because it'll eat up too much of my mana. I already have 100% accuracy rating, that's what Precision does. You notice my reservation, the grayed out part of my mana is the reservation taking over. Here's an essence. I think I did the Dawn Deep off stream, but Monsters are imprisoned in crystal or essences. Essences are just a crafting item that guarantee one stat to be something. I think woe is like spell damage or something. The type of essence also determines the type of little difficulty modifier the rare has. In this case, little blue, well, sorry, purple orbs spit out lightning when they're next to you and kind of chase you down. Rare monsters have 1 to 4 affixes on them that make them harder, with only 2, up to 2 in the first part of the game, then 3 in the second part, and then 4 in the end game. That's right, there's 2 parts to this story mode, and an end game after. Prisoner's Gate has a lot of goats. Now, the story tells you to go out to Prisoner's Gate and to leave to the forest. And for the sake of the games, for this playthrough, we'll humor the game's quest here. We follow the Emperor's Road, which is this little road here. And we'll go fast. These are Quicksilver flasks I've been promptly ignoring this whole time. On the mini-map, a strongbox is showing. Strongboxes are just clickable chests. But when you click on them, monsters pop out. This one has the fairly dangerous mod of detonates nearby corpses. Corpse explosions are one of the most deadly things the game can throw at you. No items appeared, but they actually did. My loot filter is hiding them. I noticed on the mini-map a little dot. That is an NPC. It's Piety! And she has decided to block the way. We need a key. And oh, the amount of time it takes to unlock that door. So we have to find another way. Were I playing to my prior knowledge of the game, I would just find whatever side of this road had a cliffside and go down it with our handy dandy leap slam even. Not sure why I hit E there. I think I was force of habit from another playthrough. And there's this little pass through here. These flame hellions are slightly annoying. Apparently they're like cats. I don't know why. I think they're supposed to be like cat animals. I don't see it. I think they look more like doggos, but they're supposed to be like lions or something. Let me take a look at them actually. Hellion kid over here. Nope, over here. Yeah, I guess they are cats. They just like have angry faces. They're like hell dogs or something. Hell lion dog things. They sound like dogs. Or canines. They don't sound feline-ish at all. Oh, what do I know? And the goatmen are obviously goatmen. Bearded devils, they're called, and bearded shamans. There's actually a fair bit of enemy variety in this game, albeit the enemies are... their AI and their attack patterns are very similar most of the time. If they're not shooting at you, they're bum rushing you. That's the game, which is probably for the best. Bosses have a lot of variety, though. The Burning Menace, unique Flame Hellion. He burns, that's what he does. He sets you on fire, slams the ground, burning ground. There's another unique monster here called Ungoloth. Used to be called the Red Mound, I'm not sure why they changed the name. Ungoloth is a unique goatman. We'll maybe see him as we go down the path.
Got for me today, Exile.
I'm inclined to think we're going to have to go this way. I think I'm right. play loop of PoE, generally have a main attack, in this case Splitting Steel. You'll have a movement skill or two, in this case Leap, Slam, and Dash for me. You'll have auras supporting your skills that you never that you always want to keep on, or most of the time. Generally some sort of utility skill, in this case Steel Skin for guarding. That can be automated too. Some builds have a clear skill and a single target skill. Most builds these days just do a clear skill that also does a lot of damage. That's where the meta is now. Single target is a way of the past, because a lot of builds can just clear without having to rely on a second skill for that does more damage. But that's kind of our setup right now, and that's what the gameplay usually ends up being. Let's see. I do not like these, but we'll do them anyways. Also, I leveled, and I think the
I almost feel sorry for these doomed sea dogs.
I think when I leveled, my character said something. No, maybe not. It's my accuracy anyways. 362, I gotta keep that in mind. There's a secret tech I'm about to specialize in that'll help me along. So this is the ship graveyard. It has an alternate route into the forest that has better food and stuff. And surely won't be just as bad as the beach in terms of monsters, surely. Anyways. The ship graveyard filled with a nice voice in the music, singing like this little aria. Ooh, noise. When we go back to town, they'll talk about sirens. That may be the reason why there's so many ships graveyarded here. Might be siren songs. Just maybe. And we'll talk about which particular siren the game's referring to when we get to town and they bring it up. There may be a siren between us and the forest, is all I'm saying.
I believe in traveling light.
I don't know what the rows are inspired by. They're just giant chickens. Vicious chickens. I guess dinosaurs are just vicious chickens if you think about it. Well, some of them. Maybe this is secretly Jurassic Park all along. Do I have any blue items? Yeah, I don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Really, I should just... I'm going to keep the Iron Greaves in case they have move speed and some other stat. Ah, the Ship Graveyard Cave. We need to go here. I'm going to press the newly added Town Portal button. We're not going to go there just yet. I'm going to go there after I find the other path we need. If you know the game, if you know PoE and played it before, you can actually speed through a lot of this and take shortcuts and such. For instance, instead of going to the Ship Graveyard Cave, which is a side quest we'll be doing, we could instead go to the cavern, leave a portal there, go to the Cavern of Wrath, go back to town, listen to a character about Mervale, who's the evil siren boss, and is guarding the way to the forest, the alternate route. I think we want to do Shattering Steel now. Lacerate could be fun too. But I'm thinking Shattering Steel. And we'll replace Splitting Steel with that. Some skills just get replaced, and I think that's a good one. But in Double Strike, where Precision is actually to have dual things going. Yeah, quest rewards are the main source of new skills. And that's actually kind of a good... That would be a good spellcasting scepter right there, but you're not a spellcaster. And I have better items than my other characters anyway, so we're never going to use that. So yeah, we have a quest to kill Mervale. We're not going to enact on that quest just yet. I'm going to sell this Alteration Orb. +3 all elemental res. Very nice. We'll actually sell 2 Town Portal Scrolls as well, because Town Portal Scrolls don't get used if you know where you're going. Instant recovery on low life. That's actually pretty good too. Dexterity, movement speed, alas. Well, we'll keep that. No, we won't. We already have movement speed, alas.
Be well.
Now this Essence of Woe here, I actually could use it right now. I don't think it's necessarily better, but it's not necessarily worse. Strength. Let's see. I think it's better. We'll keep this though. Put in the recipe tab for vendor recipe reasons. And I don't even need this coral ring anymore. So with our clever little trick, we go back to the ship graveyard cave, which there's a pirate somewhere around here who's like, hey, go to this cave because this slave girl I saved and is ungrateful because I'm actually secret evil pirate captain, or privateer actually. He's like, go find this person and get the all flame from her. All flame is elaborated on a little bit in this expansion. Not much. There's not really too much real lore about it. But I guess they wanted to reference the all flame in this little bit. Alright. Life and mana leech. This is one of the weird nodes in the game, this small passive node here. This small node is actually unique in that it gives life and mana leech together, whereas these nodes give mana or life. It's honestly more notable than some notable passives are. I don't think we're gonna get any. A lot of people just take this one passive instead of the whole cluster, or even part of the cluster, just for that little mana leech there. And life leech. Life leech is good. Though realistically, if you're an attack-based build, attacks tend to not cost that much mana. What you really end up doing is getting life mana gain on hit items or skills, which generally only happen with attacks, mana on hit with attacks. And spells cannot get mana on hit most of the time. I think there's one exception to that. Anyways. You can see how Splitting Steel is different from, or Shattering Steel is different from Splitting Steel. Splitting Steel just shot one projectile that split around. This just has splitting. This just has a shotgun effect. It does shotgun, like the same projectile can hit one enemy multiple times, so it's actually more damage. Theoretically, at least. You wouldn't be able to tell based on this enemy here, but whatever. Well, I thought it did shatter if it had shotgun, maybe not. Aha, an exclamation mark. That implies there's a boss here. Is this Strangle's charm? She likes to chill the ground and freeze you and slow you. But in fact, we don't actually need to fight her. And we're not going to. I think the idea is that the Allflame resurrected the water instead of the girl. Anyways, Fairgrave's here. This is freshly added. The exit to the ship graveyard cave originally just spat you out of the entrance from there, so you had to go find Fairgraves again.
Frankly, I would have been stuck.
And Fairgraves is like, yo, I'm actually a ghost captain, and the Allflame kept me alive. So I gotta kill you to light the Allflame. We disagree with that and kill his crew. And then kill Fairgraves. Fairgraves likes to cast two things, namely a Spectral Throw. You can sidestep in some Raging Spirits. Pretty old enemies, so not really a hard fight at all. And that's fine. Not every fight has to be super hard, though PoE2 might be doing that. Which, you know what? Cool, I guess. And instead of wasting a portal, since we have all the waypoints, if you don't want to waste portals, you can just go to character selection, and you'll automatically be teleported to town. The game doesn't save your spot in instance. And Vestal was like, hey, Fairgraves was cool, let's not talk about him, and you get a level. Actually, don't know where I'm going from here. Probably to Thick Skin to get more life. And actually Withered Hunter would be good too. Weathered Hunter, not Withered. Silly me. We also might want to get Strength. Is Shattered Steel projectile? It is. If I'm leaning into projectiles, I could get Fury Bolts, but I'm not convinced. It actually might just be aligned towards one-handed weapons. Damn it, holding a shield stuff, because we're probably going to be using a shield. Tell there's a shield master right here. I don't actually think this is a good cluster according to the meta, though. Impale master, we are impaling. This is where picking a build would have helped a lot. In addition to not messing with me a little bit. So what would be a good node? Probably Champion of the Cause. Fizz damage. Let's see. Not really sure what people do with this skill tree here. I feel like this would be an okay path to take. Go to Defiance, but I want Strength soon. And I want it quickly. Could just go around, because I think there's other nodes to do here. I think I'm going to go this way, get a little bit of strength. Since none of these are really that good.
While we live, we are blessed.
And while we're here, I'm going to look for a weapon that is better. We're using one-handed swords right now, and we'll stick to that plan, I think. There is a broadsword that's level 15. We are close to level 15, after all. Even though this is a normal item, and it still does actually more damage than this by a little bit. But more importantly, you can craft on normal items very easily with the power of essences we don't have and transmutation orbs we do have. There's options. We're not going to use it just yet. Well, we'll just go into Merveil's Caverns now. You have an optional quest we are not doing, the dirty job. Let's just kill a necromancer into a little area. Doesn't give a good reward, so we actually are going to skip it. That's a thing you do in this game. Oh, we have corpses. That's right. I have corpses, right? I have 2. Alright, well. Let's make a sword. Where are swords? Ooh, a saber. That looks fun.
And become a weapon to cut the wicked.
I wanna say this is not as good. Could be. It's almost as good, actually, ironically enough. And it has red slots that we desperately need. But it does end up doing less damage overall, so... But that's actually without precision. Let's see. What happens if we do precision? Oh, we're capped on accuracy on anyways. Interesting. I kind of want to keep this. We'll put an Ancestral Protector in here because it gets a level from the gems. We will want a level precision in the background though. And precision gets leveled up here. Actually, since we're not leveling precision, might as well just leave it be. Splitting steel, never using again, so... Well, we'll level splitting steel, and precision will just not level for a little bit. Besides, the saber looks cooler. Alright, let's get a... ring, I think.
So that you may guide their hands to success.
Mana, regen. That's better than this, no matter what. There's actually a nifty recipe with iron rings that we might be taking advantage of. Our cold res is 26. So what we're gonna do... is go to town. And if we take this crappy iron ring we had, wherever it is... Oh, it's in my inventory. And all we need is a blue gem. It can be any blue gem, like this one for instance. Scroll of Wisdom. Sell it, you get a sapphire ring. And sapphire ring gives cold res, which is what we're going to need for the next area. So I'm just going to take advantage of that right now. Resistances in this game matter a lot. They cap out at 75% for the fire, cold, lightning, and chaos. We don't talk about physical damage. There's 5 types of damage types generally: fire, cold, lightning, chaos, and physical. Fire, cold, and lightning are generally designed to be capped off at 75. Chaos is pretty okay to be at 0, but it's nice to have higher and higher as time goes on. While Act 1 you can get away with low res, generally you want to have as high as possible, 75 or even higher if you can raise your maximum resistance, as oxymoronically as that sounds. And the thing about the math of resistances is that, let's say you have 50% res, now you're not actually taking a quarter more damage from having 25%, reduce resistances. You're actually taking double, because if you're only taking a quarter of the damage with your maxed res, but you're taking half the damage at 50 resistances, that means, half is twice as much as a quarter. So you are taking double damage equivalently, then you're taking like twice as much damage as the game is intending you to. Because the game is designed roughly around you being capped on resistances that are fire, cold, and lightning, the elemental resistances. Whenever the game says elemental res, it's referring to fire, cold, lightning. It's not referring to chaos, not referring to physical. Physical damage doesn't really have a resistance. It kind of can, but generally physical damage is mitigated through armor. You may have seen it on some of the skills. Like this has 100 armor. Armor is more of a formula instead of a percentile reduction. It's generally designed that bigger physical attacks, bigger attacks do more damage, or bigger attacks are mitigated less by armor than smaller attacks are. So like a big slam will generally do more damage. Yes, evade, that's annoying. Mervale's singing, thinking that we're Duresso, and is heartbroken that we aren't, and I'm sure she'll express her grief in a healthy way. Mervale calls these squid things her children, I think. It's Mervale's daughters, which has some implications about what sirens look like in this game. These birthing squid lady creature things. Then the sirens have even tinier children. Mind you, if I read the diary at the entry, the Sailor's Flesh diary, it would be Mervale talking about how she's awaiting Duresso and how she wants him to see her children. I don't know if they mention it yet, but I think they do. Duresso was a gladiator in Ray class Ancient Arena. And Duresso had a... or maybe Warrior. I think Ray class. He had a wife called Mervale. Mervale put a necklace around her neck and became a crazy siren monster thing. That we'll see momentarily. I'm sure it's fine. I think she's mistaking us for somebody else, though. I would like you to pay attention to the piles of gold on the ground. It's a nice little touch. So here's Mervale. She seems a little scaly. Kind of has some starfish in her head, in her hair. I guess she looks kind of alluring, kind of in a siren fish way. I think that's the idea. She summons resplendent constructs, which are golden illusion monster things that will hurt us. Merveil does a lot of cold damage, which is why we want cold resistance in this particular part, because she does a decent amount of it, and it makes the fight a lot easier if you can tank hits. Like, imagine that doing twice or 3 times as much damage as... It would probably do twice as much damage if we had no cold res. We have 45 though. So you can see how that helps. Music's pretty dramatic. Almost dead. Ah, but she's not dead. And note the gold I was pointing out, it's actually bones! She was sirening us all along. So Merveil the Twisted is in fact a fish lady. Yeah, she... Fish squid thing. I guess a squid monster. In this phase, you have to watch out for the water spout slowing you down. She also likes to throw a projectile that kind of hurts. I think the most dangerous attack she does is summon her spawn. The red ones explode, much like barrels do, I suppose. And their explosions do a lot of damage, so you gotta kill them before they get to you. These unstable larvae. What a lovely name. Unstable larva. That's what you want to call your spawn. Your children. In older versions of the game, she would summon some unique mini-bosses to accompany her, and those were like her daughter, and they're different elements. Now they appear in the areas earlier. They appear in the earlier parts of the caverns, but we didn't see them because I skipped them. Joke's on y'all. Alright, that's Act 1. And little statues are just skulls. There's a diary.
Gave me the gem, kissed me, promised.
Yep, and that's the dialogue about Merveil going crazy in her damn diary. Notice the waypoint's already checked for us, like I mentioned. It does that at the end. And we can't even go back to the cavern? Excuse you? It's right there. Anyways, we're gonna go back to Lion Eye's Watch. Here, just have dialogue for beating Merveil. She's like, I thought you were gonna get killed, but aren't you the monster secretly? Hey, Actually, I might put this on. Let's see. Sell that.
Be well.
I think I want to identify a few items. I like doing this. Now, if you're speedrunning through the game, you don't want to do this, but whatever. 13 to 24. I want to say this is just more damage. Okay, we're going to keep that. Alright. In which case, let's see. 114 versus 84. Yep, okay, that's more damage. I forgot to summon my totem that entire fight. How silly of me. There's another identify scroll. Whatever, we're just gonna get another 4. And now I can put on, I guess, Dash. And Ancestral Protector goes here. And then the other supports can just relax for a little bit.
While we live, we are blessed.
While we live, we are blessed. Hashtag blessed. Alright. Well, we've been streaming for a little bit, so I'm gonna call it here. We'll do Act 2 next time. We do this slow playthrough. Thank you for watching. Till then, have a good one.